ברוך אתה ה' אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל באמת בדברו. Hanukkah, great date in the Jewish calendar. Why? Because the Hashmonaim, a group of zealots really, were able to overcome the Syrian that had become Hellenized. We're speaking about the times of Alexander the Great, where they tried to impose a certain type of cult, their religion all over the Middle East. And they were very liberal, They accepted, they accepted the Jewish God as well. But our ancestors were very set on their own beliefs. They believed only in the true and one and only God. They fought against the Hellenization that was going to be imposed upon them. They were victorious, came into the Beit HaMikdash, once again relit the menorah, and according to our tradition, there was a great miracle that the sufficient oil for one day lasted really for 8 days. Time to bring in new oil. Great victory for our ancestors. Actually, it was also a religious war because the Syrians that were Hellenized, as I tell you, prohibited certain Jewish rituals, Brit Milah, Shabbat, and so on, because they wanted no study of the Torah. We should really have one common religion, all of us. They didn't want any particularism of the Jewish people. And our ancestors fought against that, and they were able to come out victorious. There is another date in the Jewish calendar that is similar also. That date is Purim. Purim happened in Persia, Iran of today. What happened then? There was an evil guy by the name of Haman wanted to destroy the Jews, but fortunately there was somebody, Mordechai, that knew exactly what he was going to do. There was a queen by the name of Esther. The king fell in love with her. She became queen, and she was able to aver, to impede Haman from fulfilling his mission, which was the extermination of the Jewish people, the physical extermination of the Jewish people. It also had religious connotations, but I don't want to go into that. But wanted to finish the Jewish people. What happened? Great miracle. We were saved. Okay? You know what we Jews do? We thank God. We realize that it's God's hand, even though in Purim you don't find God's name, but according to many of our rabbis, the word HaMelech, that king that appears there, is really a sign of the presence of God. HaMelech is the King of Kings, and that is God. Okay, so I say we thank God. How do we thank God? When the Jews left Egypt, it says in the Torah, they crossed the Red Sea, saved themselves from the Egyptians that were persecuting. That says, Az Yashir Moshe. Then Moses exploded in chant. Afterwards, Miriam did the same thing. We express ourselves in thanks to God. We do that in the Jewish calendar. Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuot, we recite a group of psalms called Hallel, which are exalting God, thanking God for the many things he has done for us. So when it comes to Hanukkah, we do the same thing. We say Hallel each and every, the 8 days of Hanukkah, we say Hallel. But on Purim, we don't say Hallel. Why not? Listen, we are about to be exterminated. Why don't we say Hallel? Thank God for what happened to you. Why only on Hanukkah? Why not on Purim? Maybe the answer is that Purim was really a solution that was partial, a little bit of a solution. We overcame the evil decree of Haman. How did we do it? By Purim. Purim is really, lots. It means by sheer luck, we saved ourselves. But after the edict came out that the Jews could defend themselves, and Haman was no longer there. He was hanged on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordechai, who was the king of Persia afterwards. It was still Ahasuerus. Maybe another Haman could come up and say, you know what? what we did before is not right, and convince the king to do something else. Purim was not a final solution. Purim was just an intermediate, a respite. For a moment, we were okay. So maybe Hallel requires when there's a real solution to something. In the case of Hanukkah, it was different. The Assyrians were expelled, and for over a century and a half, I think our ancestors had freedom. There was a kingdom. The kingdom of Judah was once again independent. That was a solution. Some of our rabbis want to say that we say Hallel because on Hanukkah, the events took place in Israel, in the land of our ancestors. The events of Purim took place outside of Israel, and you only say Hallel for, well, just a moment. When did our ancestors leave Egypt? On a certain date, they weren't in Israel, and we say Hallel. Come on, Shavuot, we still say Hallel, even though the event didn't take place in Israel. I think that the reason is that it wasn't a definitive solution, what Purim offered. It was only passing. For the time being, you're okay. But don't throw away your guns. Don't take away the locks from your doors because you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. You are still dependent upon somebody else. You're dependent upon the whims of this king by the name of Achashverosh. And Hanukkah, it was different. Hanukkah meant that we are no longer dependent on the Syrians. Now we are really independent. Yet, when I reflect upon life, are there definitive solutions to things? Why are we celebrating Purim? If Purim was only a passing solution, why do we celebrate it? Maybe we shouldn't celebrate it at all. But I think in life there are no definitive solutions. Birth is something definitive. You come into this world, death is something definitive. But in between, look at the pandemic. Did anybody anticipate there's going to be a pandemic? No. Suddenly, we have to confront a new situation so that maybe Hanukkah and Purim are not that different, there are no definitive solutions. Intelligent is a society that prepares for things that they couldn't predict before. How do you prepare? By having a healthy society. And you can see which countries are responding best to the pandemic. Those that have healthy economies. Which family is able to resist suddenly an eventuality they didn't anticipate? Those that are very well integrated. So while we cannot opt most of the time for definitive solutions, make sure that your family is healthy, that your business is healthy, that your relationship with your friends is there where it has to be, so that in case something unforeseen comes, you're able to respond accordingly.